Welcome back to Real Roots Radio. I am stoked to have my pal CJ Lewandowski of the Po Ramblin Boys joining us on the air today. How you doing, CJ?
Good, man. I'm sitting here on the back porch and enjoying the day before I got to hit the road again.
Enjoying the beautiful Smoky Mountains. The Po Ramblin Boys got started in the Smoky Mountains a decade ago. This year marks 10 years of great music from the Po Ramblin Boys, commemorated with the new album Wanderers Like Me, available now from Smithsonian Folkways. What's it mean to look back on a decade of making bluegrass with your buddies?
Yeah, we've been buddies for years, man. Just 15 or more, most of us. And so 10 years is is an accomplishment to be working together and being friends that long too. But it extends farther back than that. And then along the lines of this album, Wonders Like Me, there's a lot of influence about the good times, the bad times, the sacrifices, and the sacrifices that we've had to make, plus the sacrifices that we choose to make to go out and play music and do this. It's kind of hard to leave home sometimes, but when you get out there, you love it. And there's a lot of that going on right now in this 10-year mark, but also, there's a lot of reminiscing going on too. I sit here at the house, and this is where Josh and Jeremy and myself, I had lived here a year previous, but them two guys lived here with me for 2 years. And that's, there's a lot of memories. There's a lot of hard work and practice. There was a lot of fights. There's a lot of things, a lot of good and bad. And it's cool to be able to look, both sides on stage and see guys that have been there for 10 years and, Jasper behind me as well. So it's an accomplishment for 10 years, but it's also an accomplishment to be doing that with the same people. To me, that's a big deal.
One thing that's fun when looking at your guys' trajectory as a band is, unlike a lot of other bands who they start out and their goal is to be a full-time touring band, you guys started out just being a host band at Old Smoky, and a lot of this success was kind of thrust on you. You didn't necessarily seek it out.
No, we were getting, we were scratching the itch, myself with Carl Shiflett, and then Josh and Jeremy was with Tommy Brown, the County Line Grass. So we were playing,
Yeah.
those guys were those guys were not as heavy hitting as they once was as far as the touring, hitting the roads.
Yeah.
And so we were getting 25, 30, 40 dates a year with them. And, but that also, if you want to play music for a living, that's not going to do it. So when I got the opportunity to start a band, the house band at Old Smoky, I wanted to call people that I knew that wanted to play music for a living, because this was the opportunity to do that. And I wanted to play music with my friends. So those were the first two calls I made, was Jasper and Jeremy. And then, Josh and Jeremy. Jasper came in just a week, maybe later. So we were trying to figure it out then, but we were scratching the itch. And it was really, really nice to play sometimes 10 hours a day, but most of the time it was 5 hours. But in the beginning, we would play Sundays and Mondays, 10 hours. So we'd knock out 20 hours in 2 days. It was pretty crazy. But we were doing that, and we were completely satisfied with it. There was nothing that we wanted to do but that. It was easy. We come home and sleep in our own beds. We were 30 miles from the gig. And it's a reverse. We go everywhere when we're out on the road. We go here, we go there. Well, everybody from everywhere was coming to Gatlinburg because it's a vacation spot. It's a destination. So we were influencing people all across the country by staying in one spot. It's really cool. It really is the opposite. It's a mirror image of what happens out on the road. But we had no intention. We just wanted to play music, and we were playing, standards. We were playing music that we loved. We started sprinkling in some of Josh's original material, some of mine, and just testing the waters and entertaining the people of the Smoky Mountains and the tourists that come down here. And eventually people started calling because of our connections with Carl, our connections with Tommy. They said, well, we saw this something or other on Facebook, or we saw this video on YouTube. Would y'all want to come to the festival? It's like, well, we don't want to knock anybody out of work, but also you're going to have to pay us, because we're going to have to leave our day job to come up here to do this. So our first show outside of the distillery was August of 2015 in Alberta, Canada. So we didn't have anything in the States, and we went up there, came back, did 3 days in the Smokies here at Old Smoky Moonshine, and then we did a 2-week tour in Europe. So that was our first. There was no want for us in the U.S. at that moment. So yeah, and it's just snowballed from there, and I don't know how. Uh, sometimes that does make for hardships and hard decisions because we didn't come in with a plan. We didn't come in, well, if we get this for, because we didn't project any of that stuff. So it was just like, well, we need to deal with it in the moment. And so there's been a few difficulties with it, but you know, before Po Ramblin Boys, I never had a job playing music that we didn't have to push to be at the next show and put like we were pushing all the time and not really getting where we wanted to go. There was more no's than yeses. And it was nice to flip positions and say, like, you're gonna have to come up to what we need to make this happen because we got a job. So, it worked out really well. And like I said, we've all bared down and really come to know our places in the band and what our strengths and weaknesses are as far as behind the scenes, and that's what makes it successful. Is we all support each other, but we all stay in our own lanes, as well as, like, you do this, you're the merch guy, you're the sound guy, you're the advancing guy, and we place those jobs, and everybody's been dedicated for a decade.
Why do you think that teamwork and everybody kind of having their own niche within that team is so important?
I think it's important because it's not all on one guy. uh, and there's a burnout factor at all times, and I've been up and down with that, and I think several of us have in the band at certain times. But like, I don't know the slightest thing about sound, and I don't have an interest in it. So, but Jeremy is all over that stuff, and our front of house guy Eddie Ferris, he's all over that stuff too. And they sit there and they speak like a totally different language when they start talking about the sound equipment on the bus, and if that's your interest, then and that's, as the manager of this and the leader of it, I wanted to observe, like, what is somebody's interests. And Josh has a huge interest in Instagram and social media, and making graphics and finding out the information as far as advancing these shows. And so it's like, okay, well, this is a natural spot for you to be. And so we've kind of observed, and we know each other so well that it's become important, like, as self-identity too, because we're all different people. We're all completely different personalities. We're all strong personalities, but we're all different. And so knowing each other's places where they want to be, not as, like, I'm stuck doing this job and I hate it. And there's been a lot of times over the years that, advancing per se, Josh started doing the advancing, I was doing contracting, he was doing the advancing, and then he kind of got like, I kind of want to do something different. I'm getting burnt out with it. So I took it over for a year, and now he's got it back again. So we work together. And again, putting all that on one person is not a good thing. And I really think that's part of the reason why we stuck together too, because we honor each other's fortes, if you will.
When you guys first started, it was a shared passion of traditional bluegrass. You guys had a lot of similar interests and tastes. Your new album, Wanderers Like Me, marks a unique spot for the band, as in it is majority original material. What's that been like for the Po Ramblin Boys to be able to record an album of primarily original songs?
It's overdue, I believe. When we went with Smithsonian Folkways, there was this want and need to kind of bridge the gap between Smithsonian Folkways releasing older material, re-releasing older material, and then them phasing into supporting new acts and new projects. And part of that was the Industrial Strength Bluegrass project that that you and your dad did. So, and that also drove me to seek out Smithsonian a little bit more. We were offered a spot with them previous to a rounder deal, and we didn't take it at the time, but we came back around to it, and John Smith has been so good to us. But that first project, Never Slow Down on Smithsonian Folkways, was kind of like bridging the gap. Like, we're going to put more original material on it, but also we want to harken back and we want to dig out of deep catalog stuff, because that's one thing I like to do, is pull out of the record collection that I got here at the house and just listen and find those B songs, or the, there's 12 songs on an LP, and maybe 2 of them were popular, but there's some good material on the other one. So I call that gem hunting. So I was hunting for those, and that was kind of a bridging of the gap. It was also an introduction to Laura being a part of the band, so we wanted to feature her a little bit and some of her influences, because we never had got to do that yet. This one, we had kind of 2 ideas, and the idea was like, let's throw back completely and do a extremely traditional bluegrass album, or let's just throw the dice and see where it lays with original material. And Josh is the well of that. He produces really good material that's in the same manner as what Smithsonian's doing. It's new, but it also harkens back. Like, it sounds like it's been written quite a few years ago, not to date it, but to naturally progress. And that's what I feel like we're at, is if some of our heroes were still around, the natural progression of their music might lay in the vein of where we're at right now. So there was a quote in the Bluegrass Unlimited that we were progressively traditional, and I really like that. I try and stay away from the word traditional a lot of times, because we're just us, and we grew up in a traditional field, but that doesn't mean we have traditional ways of thinking. And that goes to personal stuff, but also it goes on to the material and the albums and the song choices and all that. It doesn't have to be a bluegrass song to be cut by us, because if we cut it, it's going to sound pretty grassy, because that's how we were raised.
Yeah.
So it gave us an advantage to kind of expand a little bit and really showcase what we have to offer and be as much us as we possibly could. So it's very important, and I love it. I love that there's some of course original stuff, but I love that there's some songs from Tommy Brown's catalog. I love that there's a Osborne Brothers song on there that probably no one even knows was an Osborne Brothers song. I love that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very good balance. And Woody Platt, our producer, from Steve Canyon Rangers, he was the producer on this, and this was the first time that we ever sought out outside influence on that kind of stuff. We've always looked at different options, but to have it right there in front of us and to be in the studio with us and that in depth with it, man, Woody was in it. He was in it more than we were, really. Like, he loved the idea and loved the
Right.
project and just pushed so much creativity out of us that we didn't even know we had. And I think that's a big part of this project too, is pulling from outside resources that are heroes and friends to help us expand to something that we didn't know we could do. Sometimes you need a little outside confidence. As musicians, we all struggle sometimes with what's good, what's okay, what's not okay. Am I good enough? Am I ever going to be able to sing this? And so when you got Woody in there, a powerhouse that stood beside Steve Martin and things like that, it was really encouraging. So we needed it. We really did.
Absolutely. So many great original songs on Wanderers Like Me, as you mentioned. What's one in particular that speaks directly to you?
Oh man, I don't think Josh will admit it, or maybe it's just a personal thing, and we've all been through it in the band. But "Clouds in My Mind" really hits me pretty good, and of course I sing it, but that subject matter of trying to, forget a few things for a little while, whatever that vice may be, in this case drinking. That one hits me pretty good for sure. But also Wanderers Like Me, that's one of my favorites on the album, and that's probably why we named the album what we did. There's a lot of good ones that Josh wrote on there. Santa Fe is one that we've been doing on the live shows for over a year, and that one kind of means something to us too, because I remember sitting here. I was actually out cutting the grass the day that Merle Haggard died, and Josh came out on the front porch, and he's just started waving, and I didn't know I thought something had happened, like happened here, and so I shut the mower off, and he said Merle died, and I was just like, and I could. So at that moment in time, I switched my music to Merle and finished cutting the grass, listening to Merle Haggard, and so that Santa Fe uh, is kind of based off the dying wishes of Merle as a wandering soul and kind of a hobo of sorts, a hobo of music, and the last thing he wanted to do was die on in the most comfortable place that he felt at home, and that was his bus, the Santa Fe Super Chief. So what more could you ask for as a person who has traveled the roads your entire life and made a living at it than to go on the bus? That's pretty powerful.
What a cool idea for a song, and a perfect fit on a project called Wanderers Like Me.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good one. Another one that is real close to me is Smoky Mountain Home. I feel like it's about this place. I've got 2 acres and a log house out here in the foothills of the mountains, and we all spent a lot of time here. And it and when I listen to it, and especially when I'm not here, when I listen to it, I think about pulling in the driveway and seeing what's mine, and feeling that sensation again of being home for a minute. So a lot of good tracks.
Chatting with CJ Lewandowski, the Po Ramblin Boys. You're wearing your Osborne Brothers shirt, which, I mean, represent. You mentioned you like going gym hunting, digging through and finding deep tracks on your extensive collection of bluegrass and country LPs and records and pieces of vinyl. You found an old overlooked Osborne Brothers song that you guys tackled for this recording. Why don't you tell us about this hidden gem you found on the Midnight Flyer album?
Yeah, Man, I love Damon Black. I love, he's famous for Haven't Seen Mary in Years, and many, many songs. And we put a Damon Black song on the last project, Never Slow Down, Woke Up with Tears in My Eyes. And that was along the lines of a tribute to one of my heroes, Don Brown and the Ozark Mountain Trio. Well, Don Brown and the Ozark Mountain Trio did a bunch of Damon Black songs, a bunch. And so I kind of have this, guilty by association. I have this love for Damon Black as well.
So if you
So
see his name as a writer, you're instantly drawn to it. Like, I got to check
yeah,
this out. Kind of jumps out to you.
yeah. So that's one of the ways, like, I kind of streamlined my search, I guess. And so I was looking at the Midnight Flyer album, and I saw Damon Black's name, Sawgrass Music, and I thought, what's this about? And then the name, the condition of Samuel Wilder's will. Like, what is this about? For one, the name of the song is this dang long. Oops. So it's like, what is it? So I listened to it, and man, it hit me. And I remember sitting here, everybody was gone. I think Jeremy and Josh might have been out with Tommy still at that point. And I was sitting here, and I love to do this late at night, like midnight to 2:30 in the morning, to listen to these records where it's just nothing is drawing my attention away from this stuff. And when you sit and listen to vinyl, you are going to pay attention, because
it's an
for one, you got to flip the
experience.
record.
Yeah.
It's an experience. So, man, I've done it with Merle. I've done it with Jones a lot. Hank Williams. I've done it with everybody. But I was sitting there and I just listened to it. And as soon as them guys got home, I'm like, you got to listen to this song. And this was 7 years ago. Me and Bobby were pretty close at that point. Not as close as we got to be, but so with Bobby's passing and, Sonny's passing as well, it just seemed to be the right time, and I brought it. It was one that wasn't even on the list. And when we went over and cut it at the studio, or to record for the week at the studio, I said, we're doing The Condition of Sammy Wilder's Will. Like, it's time. It's time to do it. This is the album that we need to do it. And for one, we never really have done like quite an in-depth story song like that, besides maybe Ice on the Timbers and maybe Ice Covered Birches. But this one, you know, with that little twist, Ice on the Timber would be the closest, I guess, because it does have a twist or a turn. But the humor behind it too, and it's kind of the life lesson of maybe we should be a little bit more patient with things. Like I think that was necessary for this project too. So, and it was definitely a tribute to Bobby and Sonny, definitely. And the other night when the Opry, we did that song, and it was, you know, it's one of my favorites on the album. If I would have chose 3 songs by my choice, I might not have chosen it to do it on the Opry, but also we had to do it on the Opry because that's where the brothers were. That's where Bobby and Sonny stood. And why not? You know, because you never know when you're going to get called back to the Opry. So we wanted to take advantage of that. And August, 60 years of the Osborne brothers being a part of that amazing establishment. So it's like we might only have one time to celebrate this. So we did.
Yeah.
And it was very healing for me because Bobby's been gone, you know, a little over a year. And it was hard, you know, it was really hard for me. So that standing in that circle and singing, even though it's not, you know, Rocky Top or Ruby or Midnight Flyer, you know, it was good to do a song for Bobby and Sonny in that circle. So it was really a good healing process, and I felt like a lot of grief came off of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
The album
that's important.
the album itself seems really personal to y'all. One, celebrating a milestone year, you know, even, you know, one of the few non-originals still really personal to you. And then of course, so many of the songs drawing on experiences, not just from Josh as the songwriter, but that you all have shared together over the last decade. Even the
Mhm.
cover of this album is personal to y'all in the band. Tell us about this cool cover for the new album from Smithsonian Folkways.
So that's one of my favorite things of the whole project. When we didn't have this subject matter of you know, a subject album planned. It's just kind of like the way we started. We kind of let the juices flow and let things go where they need to go naturally. So a lot of these songs pertained to traveling and heartaches and hardships and the good times, and you know, a lot of experiences like you said of us being together. And so it wound up being, you know, the Wonders Like Me album. And when we picked the song title, I pulled for that one, and I got to thinking, you know, because we all have our influences, and we all have these little things. Like, well, I just talked about Bobby and Sonny, and you know, Jasper didn't really have a whole lot of influences that we have touched on through the years. And I just got to thinking
Compared
one
to
day,
like, you mentioned Bobby State, of course, Jeremy and Josh grew up playing for Tommy
Ralph,
Brown,
yeah,
and different
and
things like
Ralph,
that.
and yeah,
Ralph,
and
huge Ralph fans, different things like that.
yeah, I'm a huge Jimmy Martin fan. Jasper is a necessary entity standing back there playing the bass. He doesn't necessarily sing songs or anything, but he's just a part as all of us. So I was just trying to say, like, how can we've developed as a family, you know, we know each other's families, we know each other's everything pretty much. And like, what can we do to bring Jasper to the light a little bit more? And I got to thinking about, you know, his great grandfather, who was a incredible painter, and his name was Henry Lorenzen, and he was famous as a frontier artist in North Dakota, where Jasper's from. Jasper grew up in the home that Henry painted in, and
Wow.
we've stayed in that house. It's a little old tiny house out across the road from Fort Mandan, where Lewis and Clark stayed. And actually, Henry Lorenzen donated that was part of the Lorenzen farm, and Henry Lorenzen donated that property to the state to where they could build a replica of Fort Mandan, and then now it's a state park. So there's this huge connection, and really the connection is
Huge part of
artistry.
North Dakota history.
Yeah, huge part. Like his stuff is hanging in the governor's mansion and things like that. So there was hundreds and hundreds of pieces, and when we would go back and visit, there's a bluegrass festival there, right there across the way at Fort Mandan, and we played it. So during that time, we stayed in that house, and I remember the back room of that house. There's an unfinished painting, and Henry died when he was 97 years old, and he was almost blind at that point, from what I understand. And you could tell, like, his imagery got a little more fuzzy, got a little more broad spectrum, and a little more
More
not necessarily
impressionist.
abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, more impressionist, and it was neat to see. Like, it hit me pretty hard to see, like, wow, this was the last thing that he worked on. He passed away in 1997, and it's still standing on the easel that he was painting on. And
Wow.
so that was one thing, and I got to thinking about the artistry of our families, and how my grandma taught me how to sing, and how Tommy taught Jeremy and Josh, and Laura gets the impact from her grandmother and her dad. It's like, where did Jasper get all this? Of course, he got it from his dad and his mom and stuff, but it goes farther back than that, and that's where it's a different type of art, but it is artistry, and we wanted to. I don't know. I went to him and I said, "Is there anything that you think that when we think of wandering, we think of going out there in the West, and we go, places we've never seen, and these landscapes that aren't home, because we're all from kind of the same region. It's like, going seeing these new things, and out West is kind of that." And I said, "What do you think about, shedding some light on your great grandpa?" And he started snapping pictures. He went up to his mom's and his great aunt. She had written a book on Henry, and we started looking at all these different paintings, and we picked that one as the cover. And there's even a blurb about Henry in the liner notes, because it's important. It's influential, and we did highlight some colors and change it a touch. The picture is the same. It's called Rider in a Storm. And I don't remember the year. I believe he painted it in 1976, but I'm not sure. And one of the big things too was when we were doing this album artwork layout, we already had the picture and everything, but there were several that, different colors and different styles and expanded version of the picture. And I said, there was one, and it's the cover now. It had Henry's name in the bottom corner. Like, we're not going to cut that out. Don't zoom up anymore. This needs to be there. So it's awesome. We get to honor family still, and then we're carrying some of his prints and the book about him on the table now, and it's nice. It's really cool to talk about our families and our influences, and that is a big part of us. But we're also bringing something fresh again that has been old, or maybe slightly forgotten, and we want to. That's been our goal for the whole time, is make old things kind of fresh again.
The new album's available now from Smithsonian Folkways. It's called Wanderers Like Me, the latest from the Po Ramblin Boys. CJ, where can folks go to see where y'all are going to be on the road next, and to pick up a hard copy of this new album? I know, of course, they can stream it on the Spotify and the Apple Music, but you guys have a really cool vinyl edition out now that folks can check out, right?
Yep, we've got some vinyl. You can go to Smithsonian Folkways website, and you can also go to the PoRamblinBoys.com and get that merch. We've got a limited edition turquoise vinyl, and it's one of, if you get a copy, it's one of 200. So it's very, very limited run, and we've sold about 40 or 50 at the table so far. So you might be able to get one from us, but I would just secure it with Smithsonian Folkways if I was you.
Be sure to check that out. ThePoRamblinBoys.com. See the next time they're going to be near you, and pick up a special turquoise edition of the new album, Wonders Like Me. CJ, thanks so much for joining us on Real Rich Radio today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for all you do, man. Appreciate you.